AroMagic, and welcome to your May AroMagic course focusing on the Mayan civilization. And of course, our focus within that this month are sacred offerings to Great Spirit. It's a very exciting session for me personally, and hopefully for you as well. This begins our new format. So starting in May, as I'm sure you remember from when we had our last class, I announced this, but just in case you forgot, what I'm doing now is I'm recording our classes. So this is recorded. You're about to watch the recording. I hope you love it. And then on top of that, you're going to get a second class each month. No additional cost. I'm not raising prices. I'm actually doing this at your request. What you have said is you want more focused class time, meaning no digressions, no comments from people. You want my attention focused solely on the content. But then you'd like to have some conversation too. So I'm sort of doubling my work, but hopefully for the result of giving you twice the richness of a class. And we're refining everything we're doing this year, I will tell you, because next year we're launching Sage Goddess University. And so the structure of classes, a lot of different things are going to happen next year. What you're going to have is your core program next year, Holistic Healer, but then you're going to have a buffet of electives, ways to customize and deepen your learning, almost like when you get a bachelor's degree and you have your major, but then you have your elective classes and maybe a minor where you specialize. You're going to be able to do that now through Sage Goddess. And so there's a lot more coming your way. Obviously, I've got three books that I'm finishing in 2017, 2018, 3 that I'm writing in 2019, and 3 that are slated for 2020. So you're going to have almost 10 books by the end of 2021. So I am producing. So much is coming through. I'm so inspired. I've never been more inspired, honestly, than I am at this time in my life. And a lot of what has been inspiring me is this journey that we've been on this year through this world of magic. And by exploring each of these countries and civilizations, what we're learning is a lot more separates us, a lot more unites us than separates us. We have more in common than we have differences. And hopefully that's what you're seeing. You know, my big passion in life. And I studied Western civilization. I taught the history of Western civilization. My background really is in languages and literature. And so I'm very interested in how language evolves and how language reflects culture. Very interested in linguistics, and also in history and civilization and culture. I'm also interested in metaphysics, right, and quantum physics. I'm interested in how all of the crystals and the herbs and the essential oils actually become mouthpieces, voices of the divine, and how each of them, and in our case with AroMagic, each of our essential oils and each of our herbs holds a vibration. And when we look at the essential oils and the herbs in the context of their country of origin, I think a whole additional narrative comes alive. And so tonight we're really talking about the Maya. I'm going to start with a quick story just because it really is so relevant to our work. And if you've heard the story before, it'll just be a fun reminder for you. I haven't told this story a lot, and especially not in the depth I'm about to tell you, but it's very relevant and germane to the work that we're doing. So I'm going to say it was 7 years ago now, actually, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I had gone on a weekend-long breathwork, pranayama intensive retreat with a shaman teacher of mine who I adore. I was so excited, and it was really 3 full days of breath work, which if you haven't done breath work before, it does produce something of an altered state of consciousness, but it's through the over-oxygenation or hyper-oxygenation of your brain. It's actually part of the yogic tradition, pranayama, this kind of breathing technique. I've actually taught it before in sabbatical, so if you've been with me forever, we've done pranayama together. But I was doing this intensive retreat, and before the retreat, before I left, I was told that I was going to create a perfume to honor the Mayan and Aztec, the Mesoamerican civilization. Remember, this is early on in the history of the landscape of Sage Goddess. And so I didn't know what that meant. Sometimes I just don't. I get those little channeled pieces of wisdom, and then the knowledge or the experience arrives later. And so I went into this breathwork retreat, first day in, beautiful experiences, but not connected to the Maya. Second day in, beautiful experiences, not connected to the Maya per se. Third day of the retreat. And if you've done breath work, to continue to go in over and over and over again, it's a very disciplined practice. And so it was, I think, the second to last journey of that retreat. And I had gone in, and the shaman who was leading the retreat is a very interesting person, very gifted. and she's able to read a room while people are breathing and understand. And so when you feel her next to you, even though you're in this sort of altered state, you know that she's there. And she always, at least in my experience, she comes over before the experience that she's there for, if that makes sense. Like, she has a premonition about what's going to happen with each person in her circle. And so I was laying down and I was breathing and I was starting to drop in, as we say, to the deeper level of state of awareness or consciousness. And what I felt, it's hard to even describe it, but I literally saw the Mayan calendar. I was laying and it came and it was on a slab of probably granite or rock, okay? And the diameter of it, the dimension of it, looked like it was about maybe 2 or 3 inches thick, okay? But it was wide. I mean, in my vision in that breath work session, it was like almost the span of my arms, okay? And as I was breathing and my eyes were closed and I was dropping into that deeper state of awareness, this Mayan calendar arrived, and it looked like it was going to hit me. I mean, it was enough where I felt my whole body jerk, but it didn't. It hovered like this, and it shook, okay? It was literally sitting and vibrating right in front of my face. And I remember in the journey, I was kind of like, I didn't turn my head, but I was like scanning, right, with my peripheral vision to try and take in all of I recognized it instantly because I had been working with the calendar for a long time. I had never had this experience. And it wasn't scary, but it was potent. It was powerful. And so my shaman came over and I felt her. I could feel her coming, right? So I'm having this experience. I'm seeing the calendar. It's like shaking. And I feel her come beside me. And she's sitting, she's kneeling, and she's holding my shoulder. I remember she had her hand on my shoulder. And I stayed there with the journey. And I was guided to the ingredients for what then was called Azteca. Some of you may have worked with Azteca. Azteca has amaranth essence in it, and it has mango, and it has, there's a tiny hint of copal. It's very much the medicine of the Maya. And so when we were done, when the journey was done, the calendar sort of like lifted from me and then it disappeared. And at the end of each journey over the course of this retreat, we had to, recount our experiences. So each time we went in, we would come back to the full circle of people who were there. There was only about 15 of us. And we would share. And so I remember I'd been listening to everybody share all weekend, and I was always the one having like the really intense, weird, super weird experiences compared to other people, right? So I always wanted to go last. And then in this round, when it came to me, I said, I'd rather pass. You didn't have to discuss your experiences. And so my shaman said, I would prefer that you would share if you feel like you're able. And then she looked at me and she said, because the Mayans are here. Your Mayan ancestors are here. I hadn't said a word to her about what I saw. And I didn't have to. She saw it too. And so as she was sitting there with her hand on me, I know that she stepped into that field with me. And so then I reluctantly, I was like, oh, okay. And I had finished hearing everybody else. They had seen dolphins and, parrots and their grandmother. I mean, it was just, very beautiful, but very, what I would call normal visions to have, right? Visions that make sense. And there's me saying, okay, well, in mine, hey, the Mayan calendar just almost dropped on my face and then hovered about 2 inches away and shook in front of me until I saw every image on it, and then it disappeared. People were like, okay, she's an interesting person. Ever since that experience, I have felt myself really deeply connecting. And every year it seems like the experience takes me deeper. And so what's really beautiful for me is tonight's kind of a full circle. Amaranth was explained to me in that journey. And I'm going to teach you tonight both about the way we think about amaranth today and the way the Mayans used it. And then I want to talk to you about what I was shown with amaranth. There's 2 different theories about why it is that amaranth was taken away from the Mesoamerican people by the Spanish conquistadors, and neither of them are good. Okay, one of them is based in more of a Catholic perspective, which I think is probably the more accurate reason why amaranth was removed And that is that the amaranth was mixed with the blood of people who were involved in human sacrifice. So a human would be sacrificed, their blood and in some cases their vital organs would be mixed with amaranth and then consumed. And so to the Spanish, who were of course conquering, this looked too close to the Eucharist, too close to the Christian ritual of consuming the blood and body of Christ. And so gone with the pagan tradition, right, and with the Catholic tradition. So that's probably the more dominant narrative. But I'm telling you all of this because tonight's really special for me on a lot of levels. Almost as special as Minoa. And even though this isn't necessarily my lineage, my mom has some South American blood, and so there's a little bit of me in there. My family is so diverse that I almost claim every country and continent as a country of origin. But I also think a lot of us have had past lives, and so whether it's in your material, physical DNA and lineage, or whether it's in your soul DNA and lineage, right? One of my favorite past life recall sessions that I had, and I think it's been about 20 years now, the person who did that particular past life session explained that my fear of heights and my fear of water, which are my two biggest fears, are both from one lifetime in which I was a human sacrifice, and I was thrown, so I fell from a great height into water and drowned. And so both of my meta fears, like my big human fears in this lifetime, are rooted in one past life that is anchored in these civilizations. So, like I said, it's a really interesting conversation for me because I feel like a lot of times do you have that experience where you feel so connected to a civilization or a practice or a ritual and you kind of don't know why. You're like, what is it there that's really, really drawing me? And so I want you tonight to sort of lean into that feeling, explore that a little bit, think about maybe what might be in there for you. There might be more than you think. So I am going to smudge just a little bit with our beautiful white sage. And then I'm also going to burn just a little bit of our copal resin to get us started. And it might be just as good a place as any to start tonight's session. But before we begin, I just want you to take a nice deep breath, roll your shoulders back, enjoy class. Enjoy learning. It's really funny. I was telling my kids the other day, I said, when I was in college, I was always a really good student. And I was in college for a long time, so I have a lot of university degrees. But there still were times where I was trying to rush through it, like, oh, I wish this semester would end, or I wish this year was over, or I wish this class was over. And I look back now, and some of you may feel this way too. I'm so grateful to learn. I tell my kids, I'm like, you get to go to school today. There's a teacher standing in front of that room, and her great joy is going to be to teach you something that she has prepared for you today, almost like a meal or a gift. And I said, one day you will look back, even though you're probably going to be looking at your watch or wishing class was over, one day you're going to look back and say, I wish there was some place I could go today that somebody just wanted to teach me something, that I could just learn something new. And so I think that's part of why I love teaching you. It's like you're here because you want to be here. You're here because this is what your soul is asking you to think about or to learn about. And so it enchants me to be in front of you. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it's really a beautiful thing because I think you also really appreciate what it means to learn. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy it. If this is your first class, by the way, because some of you are new, I want to welcome you. So we're going to open our copal resin together. This is the first of your 2 tins from this month's beautiful May AroMagic kit. By the way, this is a lifetime supply of copal, so you're welcome. Honestly, if you get through all of this before December, you're a copalaholic. There are worse things to be addicted to, my friend. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of these little copal tears, these little resin tears, and place them onto my charcoal disc. And that's all you have to do. Do you see how it's already gone? It's so good. Are you ready to receive copal? Are you ready for tonight? I want you to imagine that your soul, even in this moment, is returning to Central America. Look at that as it burns. Isn't it beautiful? It cooks. It melts. It's resin. And yet this is the scent every shaman knows. This is the opening of every ceremony. This is, if you're in the Amazon basin, this is how you're preparing even for ayahuasca ceremony, right? So beautiful, so natural, so pure, so true, so ancient, right? If you were a Mayan and there was ritual sacrifice, this would have been burned. Take a moment to just inhale and to recognize how powerful it is that we have this touchstone to such an ancient culture and an ancient time. Truly, sometimes I will tell you, like I'm nearly in tears because of what I just told you, because it moves me that much. I think we are so lucky to have the wisdom that we have, combined with the lineage that we share. We are blessed. I'm going to move this over here just so that I can talk to you. Woo! A good thing, but sometimes too much of a good thing is still too much of a good thing. Okay. And so we are ready. And so one of the, of course, we know that the ancient Mayans, everything that the ancient Mayans did was built around cycles of weather, cycles of crops, to be sure. And so one of the things that really was a focus in Mayan culture was balance. A balance between human desire and spiritual practice. A balance between light and darkness. A balance between the halves of the year. A balance between day and night. And so, and a balance between the gods and man, right? Obviously, this was still a time in which human sacrifice was practiced. It's difficult for us to talk about it or even really think about it, but it was a common aspect. And like I said, having had a past life, I believe, as a sacrifice, this is a subject that to me is one that I approach with reverence, but also with great interest. And if you have some fears related to the things that we talked about earlier, it may also be relevant for you too. And so everything was done in many ways to appease the gods. And each one of the items that we're going to talk about tonight was, in fact, considered to be a sacred offering to the gods. So let's begin with copal resin. So in Latin, this is Bursera microphylla. Bursera microphylla from southwestern USA, northwestern Mexico, but like I said, is found throughout Central America as well. Aligned with the planet Sun, the energy is masculine, won't surprise you, the element is fire. The chakra is solar plexus, again, that won't surprise you, I don't think. Sun sign Sagittarius. Okay. Today, shaman use copal, like I said, for shamanic journey. It is thought to bring you into the lower realms safely. It's also thought to be a tool to facilitate soul retrieval. Copal resin, in the Nahuatl language, one of the names translates to the blood of the trees. And that's why it was used as a sacred resin to open sacred space before human sacrifice. It was thought that the blood of the trees was an appropriate sacrifice as a preparation for the blood of the human body. Even today, it is the most sacred resin that is used in any kind of Mayan or Aztec cultural ceremony. Copal was used for healing. This is a long list. You ready? Healing, love, divination. And just like all of tonight's resins and essential oils, copal, you should really think of it less as an herb, or even, allspice, think of it less as an oil, and think of these more as medicines. It's an interesting concept in the West, especially with allopathic Western medicine, right? Like, what constitutes a medicine? And we think of it as something that we need a prescription for, like something very formal. And if you didn't get a prescription, it must not be a real medicine, something like that. But the reality is, medicina, right? In the native traditions, medicina has a much broader translation. And it means anything that is used for physical, spiritual, mental, or emotional healing and connection with nature. So if you start to redefine some of the items that you use, white sage, salvia apiana, of course, then would be a medicina, wouldn't it? And that's why we say in the Amazon rainforest, right, there's an estimated more than 30,000 plants that are used for various healing and spiritual and ceremonial purposes. So that's the pharmacia, right? That is the world's bounty of medicina. But we have to sort of get outside of our very traditional Western way of thinking about what a medicine represents. And we also have to get out of our own sort of traditional Western way of thinking about what reflects or represents an offering, right? We think of offerings as being these very formal, maybe sometimes even very expensive things. But the reality is plants and oils and herbs and resins are beautiful offerings, especially when you take them back to their ceremonial and original roots. It has actually been used, copal, the resin, when it's burned, because it becomes very gum-like and very viscous. It is the resin of a tree, right? And so one of the things you want to think about is the many different ways that you could use a substance like that. It's very sticky, and so it was used to bind pigment in Mayan art. Isn't that interesting? So you see it in murals. The Aztecs used it as makeup, adhesive for their masks, and they actually mixed copal, are you ready, with calcium phosphate to affix precious stones to their teeth. And in some cases, if they lost a tooth or had to pull a tooth for any reason, they would actually put a gemstone. They would affix a gemstone using copal and calcium phosphate. It's a mixture, sort of created like a very thick cement, but it was a permanent adhesion. I mean, honestly, it sounds kind of fun to me. I don't know that I'm going to try it anytime soon, but it does sound fun. Copal resin is known as young amber. It's very light colored. So we think of dark amber or mature amber as being darker in color, whereas if you remember looking, just in case you don't have it, the resin tears, may not be able to get the lid back off for you. Anyway, I think you saw they're very light color. They're almost like a vanilla colored resin. Copal cleanses the spirit, brings vitality to the spirit. The Mayans used it for banishing. What is banishing? So we don't talk a lot about banishing because it's not really a part of my own personal ceremonial practice. So I really only teach the things that I do. But the idea of banishing is that you actually literally remove an energetic imprint from a person, place, or a thing. The reason I don't do banishing work, I'm not pagan. It's a traditional pagan practice, but it's one of the pagan practices that doesn't resonate with me. I don't do banishing because in my experience it comes with karmic debt. You're not meant to remove anyone from your life. You're not meant to remove places or experiences or items permanently. That's to me, that's more of a God choice. I think you can choose to limit the influence of things on you. In other words, I don't cut cords, but I can narrow a cord. But in my experience, when you banish, when you say, I don't want that person in my life ever again, that person is probably there because they have something to teach you. And so if you banish them, you now accrue the karmic debt of not being willing to receive that lesson. So I'm just very careful with banishing. I'm all about, now there's a difference between banishing and binding, which I'm actually about to teach you. It's going to be one of our upcoming bonus classes. But they're actually, binding is different than banishing. Binding contains an energy, prevents it from doing harm, but it doesn't remove an energy, and it still allows you to interact with it and learn from it without, it sort of takes the fangs out of an energy. So you can bind safely, but it's very, very challenging in my experience to banish. But anyway, copal was used for banishing in the Mayan tradition, purification, divination, love. As I said, it was burned ahead of all ceremonial activity. It was burned on top of pyramids as an offering to the gods. Because remember, the whole reason that pyramids or ziggurats in Mesopotamia, they were called ziggurats in Mesopotamia, the whole reason pyramids were built was to get you closer to God, or to the gods. And so, because, obviously you get a higher structure and it's got a nice, point, and so the gods would know exactly where to descend. And so they burned copal at the top of the pyramids as an offering. Traces of copal have been discovered in almost every Mayan ruin and burial ground. And so we know for sure that it was considered to be ceremonially significant to the Maya. And I hope you've enjoyed experiencing it and working with it today. Okay, our other tin is amaranth seed. And you know how I feel about amaranth seed. Okay, so what I want you to do, we're not going to burn our amaranth, but I would love you to open your tin. I just got a whole bunch of it. And I want you to take just a little pinch. Just a little pinch. Now I'm going to teach you a very traditional Mayan ritual offering practice. Are you ready? You ready for a traditional Mayan offering practice? What you do in the Mayan tradition is you take a pinch of whatever your offering is. We're using amaranth seed, which is one of the most sacred offerings. in the entire Mayan culture, as I mentioned to you earlier. And what you do is you say a prayer, whatever your prayer is. You can make a request today for health or for happiness, prosperity, whatever it is. Make your request or your prayer. And then what you do is you just open your fingers and you let it drop to the ground. Are you ready? Don't push it out. Just let it fall. Gently. And if it all doesn't come off, don't force it. Only let come off what comes off. And what is said is that when you just let it go, that's how the Maya carry your prayers to the earth, to Pachamama. Isn't that beautiful? So that the energy just goes. Okay. In Nahuatl, which is the ancient Aztec language, the amaranth seed is called Huautli. 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 Can you say that? From Nahuatl. The Nahuatl language, by the way, is spelled Nahuatl. And Nahuatl is pure magic. I had a friend at the university where I was a professor for a long time, and he was a professor of Mesoamerican studies, and he could actually speak Nahuatl. I kind of thought that was the sexiest thing ever. Okay, now, interestingly, the Maya used amaranth seed as an offering to protect newborns. They would actually bathe a newborn baby in a bath full of water of amaranth flowers and amaranth seeds, and it was thought to protect the newborn. Now, in ancient times, especially in the Mayan civilization, amaranth seed was an important source of protein. And so remember I told you that the first theory about why Cortez and his men, the Spanish conquest of Mesoamerica, one of the main reasons that has been given anyway for why Cortez banned the use and consumption of amaranth seed is he saw it being used and combined with human blood during human sacrifice, and he was horrified, not only because he didn't approve of human sacrifice, but because he thought it was anti-Eucharistic, okay, meaning that it invalidated the practice of consuming blood's body and Christ's body and blood through sacrament. And so, like I said, out with the pagan and with the Christian. But the other theory is that Cortez's soldiers wanted to weaken the Mayans in order to make them more, easy to control and easier to enslave. And so they found that amaranth was their main source of protein. And when they removed amaranth as a food source, it physically depleted and weakened the Mayans. And so that's a difficult theory for us to accept because it's terrible, and yet it might actually be historically accurate. Okay, in Latin it is Amaranthus hypochondriacus. Hypochondriacus, right? Hypochondriac, root word, right? Now, amaranth was considered to be a supreme healer, and so it could actually be that it was seen as a master healer. Planet is Saturn, energy is feminine, element is fire. And so let's talk a little bit about what else the Mayans would have thought of when it came to amaranth. Definitely one of the most magical grains in the Mesoamerican history. Now, if they had the amaranth flowers, which vary in color from sort of an orange to a beautiful purple, they were able to make crowns, flower crowns, out of the amaranth flowers. And those flower crowns were said to protect the entire body from illness. If they made a crown of the flowers and placed it around the chest, they believed it would act as a form of armor, and in fact a very sacred breastplate to keep them safe during battle. Those who chose to invoke the dead and wanted to play in this realm of immortality, the Mayans really believed in multidimensional states of reality. And of course we know that they had lots of medicinas to help them explore that as well. But a ritual drink was made with amaranth that would help you leave your body and have more of a multidimensional experience. And so, even today, I'm going to make another prayer. Are you ready? Because on my notes, there's a lot of amaranth seed. Make one more prayer. I'm going to pray for you. You ready? If you have a prayer, say it quietly to yourself. Great Spirit, as I release this amaranth seed, I ask that the prayers and wishes of everyone who's watching are granted in perfect time. It's beautiful, isn't it? There's something really beautiful about just letting the offerings fall. I'm enchanted by that practice. So today we use amaranth for divination, protection, and healing. this outlaw herb. There are actually people who really believe that amaranth is a superfood, and that if we incorporated it into our diet today, we would be healthier than ever. There are people who say it's much better even than spirulina and chlorella and some of the things that people use today and consider to be superfoods that awaken cells and help to facilitate quantum healing. And so if you're interested in exploring that, amaranth actually may be something that you want to consider working with. Okay, now let's move on to tobacco. This is your tobacco absolute. I hope you've enjoyed it because it truly is one of the most sacred. And I'm going to apply mine directly to my skin because we have suspended it for you in jojoba. And so this is already cut and diluted for you. Oh, there's nothing like that smell. Instantly. Because tobacco is the most sacred offering to Great Spirit that you can make. And so I'm going to anoint, as I typically do, a little bit on my forehead for what I know, at my wrist for what I do. May all of my thoughts please you, Great Spirit. May all of my actions please you, Great Spirit. May my journey itself please you, Great Spirit. And so it is. May I walk in beauty. Okay, tobacco. The Latin is Nicotiana rustica. Nicotiana rustica. From Australia, Southwest Africa, South Pacific. Planet is Mars. Energy is masculine. Element is fire. Chakra is the root. And the zodiac sign is Aries. Magic, 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 magic. Now here's what's interesting. And we're going to talk about Native Americans today too in the context of tobacco, because what Native Americans believe is that tobacco, Nicotiana, which is very traditional pure tobacco, is ceremonial. They actually believe that by making it into a commercial product and by hybridizing it, right, and making it unsacred, that it has made the white man sick. That is the Native American view of what has happened to the white man who smoked too many cigarettes. And it's true. I think when you smoke a cigarette, you're not receiving ceremonial tobacco. You're not receiving pure Nicotiana rustica. You're receiving a hybrid product that actually can be carcinogenic and very dangerous to you. And most traditional Native Americans who engage in a traditional practice do not smoke cigarettes. They see tobacco as an offering to Great Spirit. Tobacco is also the most sacred herb in Mayan culture. Did you know? And actually, have you seen the Nicotiana plant? It's really beautiful. The little flowers are beautiful. And so you found evidence of the use of tobacco in runes and in jars throughout, little beautiful carved jars throughout the Mayan ruins that have been discovered. It was used as part of ritual work. And depending on the strength that was used, you could actually produce hallucinations. There are some who say that tobacco was mixed with amaranth and that it produced a hallucinatory state. Tobacco was the most important plant for ritual during the Maya civilization. It was used in every single ceremony, traditionally at the beginning of the ceremony. And it was considered to be, and it was called a reciprocal gift, meaning that the smoke was sent up to Great Spirit as a prayer and a thank you and a gesture of gratitude, right? And if you want to, what I do is I take my tobacco essential oil and I'll drop a drop at the base of all of my plants in my garden. It's a beautiful offering. But it was also thought that it was a reciprocal gift in the sense that messages were transmitted, either through the smoke if you burn the tobacco or through your own visions if you anointed with the oil. Tobacco was deified by the Maya. It was seen as a gift from God. That's also part of the reason why it's rumored that it was also outlawed by Cortez and his men, because they were really troubled that people would deify. In other words, call a plant a god, okay? And in my experience, they weren't making a one-to-one comparison, but they definitely felt like the plants were a sacrifice or an offering or a gift to the gods. And the Maya did believe in a pantheon of gods who were responsible for the weather and for all different aspects of life. And so, of course, from a Catholic perspective, that is unacceptable. And so anything that the Maya deified was banned by Cortez. The Maya chewed tobacco leaves for insect and snake bites, as well as for toothaches. It was rumored that the chewing a tobacco leaf would relieve toothache instantly. It also was helpful in terms of curing the flu and preventing illness. Let me see if there's anything else here I wanted to tell you about that. Let me see. It's anti-inflammatory. It can be used to treat earaches. There's always so many uses for different things. It used in divination for medical diagnosis. And so what they would do is they would smoke the beautiful traditional ceremonial tobacco, and then they would blow the smoke up in the sky, Mayan healers, and then they would say that the smoke would come back down and go to the place on the body that was a source of illness or pain. And that's how they diagnosed different diseases. And so they actually used it as a tool to be able to assess health as well. And so it is with tobacco absolute, one of the most expensive, which is why we diluted it. If we had put a bottle this size, your kit would have been multiply the price many times. Tobacco absolute is one of the most expensive absolutes you can find, and so we diluted it for you to make it skin safe, but also to make sure that your kit was affordable. Okay, and then the last of your 4 tools, although we are going to talk about your Mayan bonus perfume as well, which I hope you really loved, is your allspice. So I want you to open your bottle of allspice, and I want you to take 3 deep inhales. And as we prepare for the discussion class coming up in a week, one of the things I want you to think about is, what do you use as a sacred and divine offering? What's fun about the discussion is we don't just have to talk about these 4 or 5 products. We can take the conversation beyond. So I would love to know, what is your tradition, what is your practice, and what do you use as an offering? I've shared many times that star anise is one of my favorite offerings to Great Spirit because it's shaped like a star, which is the pentacle, of course, the 4 elements plus spirit, but it also just represents so much magic and beauty. The seeds themselves have all kinds of meaning and inspiration. So I would love to know more from you when we gather for discussion, just to get you thinking about it in advance, what kind of tools you prefer as sacred offerings. Okay, so ready? 3 deep inhales of allspice. 1, so good. 2, 3. Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't this just clove, or isn't this just cinnamon, or isn't this just nutmeg? It isn't. It's actually a berry, a beautiful brown berry, but it smells like all the things, doesn't it? Doesn't it smell like your kitchen at the holidays? Because it smells like all of those spices, and that's why they call it allspice. Allspice is the most traditional spice used in Mayan cacao preparation. It's very traditional in South America and Central America to prepare chocolate, a drinking chocolate, to be used in ceremony. If you're in Magical Sabbatical, I'm going to be teaching you all about cacao ceremony and Ix Cacao, who is the cacao goddess for the Mesoamerican tradition. And so, in any case, we'll talk much more about cacao when we gather for sabbatical, but I want you to know that allspice is one of the main spices used to flavor cacao. In Latin, we have pimenta officinalis from southern Mexico and Central America. So it is indigenous. It is native to the region. Planet is Mars. Energy is masculine. Element is fire. Are you seeing a pattern? The sacral chakra, and then the zodiac signs are Aries and Scorpio. Okay. So allspice, like I said, was used in cacao ceremony, but it was used much more than that. It was used in Mayan embalming ceremonies. And what's fascinating to me is you look at sort of the trajectory and the lineage. And I always ask myself, what did the cultures learn from each other, right? And so I think because the Egyptians had such codified ceremonies for embalming and preserving the human body, I think a lot of that got passed down over centuries and time, to the point where the Mayans also incorporated essential oils and herbs into their embalming recipes, and allspice was one. It was also used in Mayan prosperity rituals because it attracts money and luck when you burn it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my little sensor, and I'm going to burn a drop. What's nice about charcoal is this is for sure still warm. Charcoal lasts for about an hour. At least, usually, once you light it. So if we're in luck today, I'm going to be able to drop a drop here and send you a little prosperity energy. Ooh, there we go. It smells smells like heaven. Great Spirit, I send blessings of prosperity and abundance to everyone who's watching. May you receive every form of prosperity, wealth, abundance that you desire and need. Amen, aho, and so it is. Especially powerful to do this for you in the month of May when we're studying Maya, right? May you receive, Great Spirit, I call forth to myself abundance and prosperity on every level. Amen, aho, and so it is. And for both of us, it is done, it is done, it is done. It is done, it is done, it is done. Isn't that beautiful? Talk about like super fast and very effective prosperity ritual. You just did it. I just did it for you. But you can do that anytime. And maybe that's how you want to use your allspice. Keep it on your prosperity altar, right? And then whenever you want to call that energy in, light your charcoal and burn it. The dried berries of allspice were also used whole as an offering to the gods to draw money and luck in all future prospects. Even today, some people, when they're creating despachos and prayers to Pachamama, will include allspice in their despachos. When the allspice tree is cut, there's a very interesting cross that emerges through the branches, fruit, and leaves of the tree. And it was thought to reflect faith in the Mayan culture and tradition. Now here's the rest of what allspice does. Are you ready? It's a lot, so go with me on this journey. It provides you strength against aggression, helps you make positive changes in life. It brings courage, determination, creativity, inspiration, vision, healing, purification. It attracts good health. It magnifies the intentions of other herbs when it's mixed with them. It purifies the soul. I did a little dance for you just now to show you all that. And the ancient Maya would actually draw their baths with allspice berries because it was thought to remove impurities from the body, which I think is a really interesting story as well. And so those are your 2 oils, tobacco and allspice, and your 2 tins of copal, resin, and amaranth seed from this month's beautiful kit. Okay, so what I want to pull up now for you are the ingredients in your beautiful Mayan magic. Are you ready? This is your dram. I want you to open your dram of Mayan magic. Save this one. This is big time offering. 3 deep inhales. And then I'm going to tell you the ingredients in this one because it's super, super magic. How I wish I could go back to my shamanic journey 7 years ago with this in my hand. I can't even tell you. That's part of what I love about what I do here at SG is I feel like, at least my intention, is that I'm putting tools in your hands that you hopefully will love today, but there will be a time down the road. You're going to a journey or you're going to a retreat or you're in Sedona or whatever, and you're like, I'm so glad I have my Mayan magic, or I'm so glad I have my Minoan magic. So save those little bonus drams. They are literally a financial gift to you. They're not really included in the price of the kit. It's just a freebie. In some cases, it's an expensive freebie. This dram that we gave you would be about $20 if we were going to sell it separately. So it's actually close to being the price of the entire kit. And we're really proud of that. We really want you guys to feel like with these kits that you get your money's worth and beyond. And I think you do. The kits always sell out. So I love knowing that you're really, really happy with them. Okay, so the ingredients in your Mayan magic, are you ready? Because I don't think I've given this to you before. The ingredients are Tagetes oil, which is another sacred offering, cacao absolute, chocolate is in here. Isn't that beautiful? That's why you can see it's darker on the bottom. Do you see that? A little bit darker on the bottom. That's your cacao. Isn't that gorgeous? Then it has vanilla, absolute. Then it has tonka bean. We've never done this combination before, by the way. All of those oils and herbs are indigenous to the region. All would have been used and accessible at the time. And all of them are considered high ceremonial offerings to Source Energy, Great Spirit. And so I'm really blessed to be able to give this to you. What I recommend doing, because each one of those is an offering to itself, what I would do if you want to do a really beautiful ceremony and make a highly sacred offering, 1 drop at each of the 4 directions or 4 corners. A drop to the north, a drop to the, to the east, a drop to the south, a drop to the west, which reflects the integrity and the energy of those 4 ingredients, as well as the 4 cardinal directions, the 4 guardians of the 4 gateways. And so I think it would really be a really beautiful, even a mini ritual for you. If you wanted to use it to open a sacred space, would be to drop 1 drop in each of the 4 corners or 4 directions. Okay, I want to give you a couple of recipes before we're done. I hope you enjoyed this month's class. Like I said, I want to get you ready for discussion. So I want you to be thinking about what questions are coming up for you. Maybe in the discussion you'd like to talk more about some of the ceremonial practices that the Maya followed. And so there's going to be a chance before the discussion for you to post your questions. And like I said, I will do my very, very best to get to as many of them as I can in the time that we have. Okay, so just a few recipes for you, because I know you like recipes. I do too. If you want to make Mayan hot chocolate, it's a version of cacao, but you'd be drinking it warm. Are you ready? You will take 1/4 teaspoon of powdered allspice. I don't recommend that you ingest essential oils as a practice. I consider them to be for use on the body and only in diluted form. But you can take your powdered allspice, 1/4 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. You want to take 2 tablespoons of organic unsweetened cocoa powder, and then a cup of milk. And what you're going to do is you're going to whisk together your allspice, your cinnamon, your cocoa powder, and the milk over medium heat. But keep an eye on it. If you want to, you can also add a few organic lavender buds or a few organic rose petals. A lot of people like to add lavender and rose. Lavender adds energies of peace and detoxification to your cacao. And then rose adds energies of love and compassion to your cacao. After you've combined it all, you can pour the rest of your milk in, so take it off the heat, pour the rest of the milk in, and then stir. And if you really want to take it to another level, I like to take a bar of dark chocolate and shave it over my hot cocoa and let it melt in. That adds just the tiniest bit of sweetness to it if you're someone who needs sweet. You can also just use a little tiny bit of stevia. I don't like to use too much sugar, and I don't like to use artificial ingredients. So you can add just a little bit of stevia powder if you'd like. But to keep it really traditional, just add just a couple of shavings of dark chocolate into your cocoa and let it just sort of melt. You'll have a beautiful cacao. The other recipe I wanted to share with you, let me see if I have it. Oh, I do. Okay. Milk baths. Milk baths became all the rage in Greece and Rome. It is said that Cleopatra also used milk in her bath, so it may have been all the way back to ancient Egypt. This is a recipe for you. Are you ready? For a chocolate coconut milk bath. We have records to indicate that milk baths were used by the Maya, and they incorporated chocolate as well as coconut into their rituals. And so here are the ingredients. You're going to need 1.5 cups of powdered milk. And by the way, if you love milk baths, just have powdered milk on hand. Even if you have nothing else. Sometimes what I've done is just take a 1/4 cup of powdered milk, put some lavender buds in it, and throw it in the bathtub. It softens your skin like you won't believe. You're going to add 2 tablespoons of organic cocoa powder. So you're seeing that could also be an ingredient that you might just want to have on hand. 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and a 1/4 cup of coconut oil. And coconut oil will really soothe and soften your skin too. Mix all the ingredients in a bowl except for the coconut oil. Okay, and then put those ingredients in a little cellophane bag, put them in the fridge for about an hour. You can also wrap it up in just plastic wrap. Saran wrap is good, or you can put it in a Ziploc bag. Then what you want to do once you have let it sit for about an hour is you can add coconut oil under your running bath water, and then put the mixture in about 1/4 teaspoon at a time. So you want to keep the coconut oil separate from the mixture. If you mix it together, it's fine, but you may not enjoy the texture. So that's why I recommend putting the coconut oil, running it under your water, letting it sort of dissolve. It smells beautiful, it feels beautiful, and then add your cocoa mixture just about 1/4 teaspoon at a time. You're not going to need too much, but the chocolate will also soothe and soften your skin. You're going to emerge from that bath smelling like heaven and feeling like a goddess. So hopefully you'll love those recipes. So this has been May AroMagic, taking you to the Mayan civilization, teaching you about the ancient use of these beautiful herbs, resins, and oils. I hope you've enjoyed it. You have our discussion to look forward to. Like I said, I will post ahead of time asking you for your questions. We'll get to as many of your questions as possible. And the floor is yours. So whatever's on your mind, certainly happy to answer additional questions about any of tonight's ingredients that you may have as well. Keep in mind that your kit is available for you. Keep an eye out as well for the kit for the months ahead. We will keep you posted as those things come to the shop and make sure that you are aware. Again, thank you for being here with me for AroMagic. I hope it's been a source of wisdom and pleasure and support for you. I look forward to our discussion very much. In the meantime, be blessed, everybody. Enjoy this process of exploring the balance and the magic of the Mayan culture. I hope it reveals itself to you in as magical of a way as it has revealed itself to me. See you soon.